Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our Safer Library Reopening webinar. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. We're delighted to have you with us. Our plan for this morning is to take you through a number of products and some thinking that have a bearing on safer reopening, either by way of maintaining a safe occupancy or maximum occupancy to help with social distancing, or by way of limiting or restricting physical contact between students and staff, perhaps, or students and objects such as terminals. So we have six mini presentations to run through. So it is important that you can see the screen. Hopefully you can see our opening slide here, headed Safer Reopening. So do please make sure you can see that well. Six presentations in an hour obviously is just a brief introduction. We are hoping that this is not just a one-way presentation. We're very much hoping that we'll be able to hear your thoughts and your plans as well as we go along. So at the end of each of the 6 items, there'll be some time for discussion and some questions. So could we ask that you stay muted during the core presentations, as I think you all are anyway. Can we ask that if you think of any questions during that time, then if you can either save them or by all means use the Q&A button, ideally, in the Zoom toolbar to type in a question and send it over. And what we'll do is we'll pick that up and hopefully slot that question in at the appropriate time. So before we start, we've just got some introductions really for you. So hi, I'm Kevin Sontag. I'm the Sales Account Manager for South of England. And I'm joined by Barney, Sales Account Manager for the rest of the UK. Morning, Barney.
Hi, morning everyone.
So between the two of us, we're going to share presentation duties for you this morning. And we're joined also by Daisy, who's got particular responsibility for questions and answers. So hopefully we'll hear a lot from Daisy. Morning, Daisy. And there's yourselves. So we have a good number of you, and you are all academic libraries. In fact, you're all university libraries last time I looked at the registration page. So welcome to you, and thank you very much for joining us. Just before we start with the first of those items, just to give you a little bit of background as to the company, for those of you that are less familiar with us. We are SB Electronic Systems. We trade as Telepen, having developed the Telepen barcode symbology, which you may have heard of, you may have in your universities indeed, about 50 years ago at the dawn of barcodes. So we tend to badge everything with the word Telepen, and hence customers have come to know us as Telepen. Our purpose is to produce innovation in automatic identification, which basically means barcode technology and RFID technology. And we're based in Hertfordshire, and we cover the UK and Ireland predominantly. We do go beyond that, but our field resource is primarily geared to supply and support the UK and Ireland market. And our products and markets. So on the left-hand side here, these are products that apply largely to libraries. So as you can see, the library is our core market. The second item down, the Century Juno Access Control System, is our flagship product, has been for some time. And we'll be touching on the Juno product family, such as the third item down, the resource booking, later this morning. We also do self-service right at the bottom there. We'll be touching on that as well later this morning. And the right-hand side really is beyond library walls. So this is where barcodes and RFID can be used anywhere and everywhere, basically. So we do serve other sectors. And the last slide on the introduction is a list of existing existing customers, existing academic customers, largely with installations. So it doesn't include barcode scanners, barcode labels, but it's largely an installed product. Some of you perhaps are not on there, so we need to discuss that. So we'll be talking to you a little bit later on. So that's the company. We're going to pick up on the first product now, which is Librarian Rover. So I'm going to hand you over to Barney for that one.
Oh yeah, thanks Kevin. Thanks for the introduction. So yeah, let's just jump straight into Librarian Rover. So what is Librarian Rover? So it's a specially developed smartphone application for library staff, aimed exactly at library staff, to be able to give you all the functions that you would have at the circulation desk, but meaning that you'll have them in your pocket as you roam or rove the library floor. So it allows you to use your smartphone for a number of functions. As I say, mainly these functions that you'd be used to using at the circulation desk, such as check-in and out of items, and a few other features. So it uses your phone to do this, and it maintains the RFID security of the items. So it's a fully integrated solution. The aim for this really is so it'll increase your staff and customer engagement, and improves the user experience. And at this particular time, it's assisting with social distancing, so you're minimising contact with terminals. So staff potentially could have their own phone to use this, so they're not having to have crossover of use of PC terminals and that sort of thing. And it provides flexibility for your staff. So you can potentially use the phone for pop-up libraries, click and collect, and curbside pickup type functions and services that you might not traditionally have provided, but in the current situation, as you're looking to do things differently and make your services available differently, this can really assist with that. And we hope that it will help increase staff productivity, because it means that you're no longer having your staff sort of tied to that desk where for some amount of the time they might just be waiting. It means that they can get on with other tasks as they're around the library and still use the functionality that they'd be used to at the circulation desk. So let's take a look at the application. So this would be your home screen when you load it up. It works on any Android NFC device. It does make use of the NFC capabilities of the phone to interact with the item tag, and it connects live with your LMS. So any rules or any decision making that the LMS normally makes is still maintained within the application. So you still have full control within your library management system over anything that can be borrowed or returned. And it uses 4G and Wi-Fi. So when you're in the library, obviously you can connect to the Wi-Fi and use the application that way. If you're looking to use it outside of the library, so for, as I say, pop-up libraries or a click and collect type service that's set up somewhere separate, then you can connect in exactly the same way using the 4G. And you can issue and return items. And you can also encode items. So if you find an item that's encoded incorrectly or needs to have their item information updated, you can do that using the app. And you can also use the app to view the dashboard status of other RFID services. So if you have security gates and self-service kiosks, then you can use the app to check the status of those. So for instance, if your security gates have been alarmed, then you can see the item that's alarmed and at what time. And for your self-service kiosks, you could potentially check whether the receipt paper is running low or other alerts of that sort of nature. And then the final two features, which are only available at the moment with certain LMSs, this is being kind of developed as we integrate with library management systems, but you can also create and update patron information files within the app. So just some other screens from within the app. So you can see here, so with the issue screen, so a patron would potentially come to you, or a student would come to you and say, I want to check this item out. So you'd then use the smartphone camera to scan their student card, and then you hold the phone to the item tag, and it will automatically check the item out. You can see there's a green tick, so that means the item's been checked out correctly, and it's now on the student's account. If there's any problems there, it would show up with the red cross, and you'll be able to see what the problem is. And at the bottom there, you can select to send an email, so straight away the student can have an email record of the transaction. And then exactly the same for returns. So you simply hold the phone to the item tag, and the item will be returned there, and then you can send an email. And then here we can see, so this would be the status of the various RFID systems. So you can see there's a couple of kiosks there, and they've got some alerts on them, so we can go and have a look at those. And then the other items there are running correctly. So that's the first of our sections completed. So if anyone's got any questions there that they'd like to jump in with, then do please feel free. Is there anything there, Daisy, or should we move on to the next section? No problem. So over to you, Kevin, for this next section.
Okay, I'm just dropping back into Zoom. Anybody got any questions or comments? Is
I've
anybody?
got one question. Any plans for users to have access?
So this application is primarily designed for library staff. We will be touching on a student application later on. So there's no current plans to integrate that within the Librarian Rover application, because that does have these additional features that are only really for library staff. But as I say, we'll talk through the patron mobile checkout application in a short while.
A second question coming in that I can see.
It just says thank you.
Oh, right, okay. Anybody planning any sort of click and collect process external to the library, and looking at how they manage that outside of the library and beyond the standard circulation terminals? Not to worry if not, we'll move on. Okay. So the next item is back to me. Library visit pre-booking. We're going to make a start by looking at what the problem is at the moment with library attendance that visit pre-booking is trying to address. So the situation at the moment is that there is reduced availability, resource availability in the library. We have spaced desks out to accommodate social distancing, or removed desks, or taped them up, or all of the above. But we have reduced capacity in the library now. So we have excess demand. I'm sure there's a lot of people waiting to see what the student numbers will be, and not just enrolling, but they'll actually turn up in September as well. But there is very likely to be excess demand. So the question is, how do you balance the supply and demand issue? And obviously the default and perhaps the first obvious choice is first come, first serve. So you arrive through the door early, you're lucky. You arrive through the door late, you're unlucky. Perfectly reasonable policy, perfectly runnable, but is it the best, and is it the right one, and is it the one that we should be adopting? It has a few issues. So how do you monitor occupancy if you have this notion of a maximum occupancy that you want to reach, and you are just allowing people in through the door on spec? then how do you actually monitor what your occupancy is and when it is reaching that maximum level? And when it does start to reach that maximum level, how are you then going to enforce that maximum level? Presumably, we are going to start turning students away at the door. Students who perhaps have not just walked around from the nearest lecture theatre, but perhaps have travelled across town or across towns to study in the library and have found that the library is full. So how are they going to feel, and is that the sort of service that we want to be providing? And when you tell them that the library is full, there's not a lot more you can tell them. We don't know, for all the students that are in the library, we don't know how long they're going to be staying for. They could be leaving in the next 60 seconds, or they could be there for the day. So there's no information at all on what the library availability might be later that day when we start turning people away at the door. And in conjunction with that, not only do we not know about stay duration, but maybe we should be managing and regulating and limiting that stay duration. We have limited demand, we have limited supply of desks. So should we actually be having rules that dictate that students are only allowed in the library for a period of time in order to free up those spaces for somebody else? This is a question of whether the system is fair. And the key question really for library management perhaps is whether library management have a responsibility to help their limited resource become available to as wide a proportion of the student population as is possible. That, I think, is a key question. I'd love to hear your thoughts and comments on that just at the end of this. So how does pre-booking a library visit help mitigate some of these drawbacks, and what's involved in pre-booking a library visit? So the first thing you have to do is set that up. So you have to create yourself some bookable sessions. So that could be a whole day. You book yourself a whole day at the library, but it could be a much more granular level. It's entirely up to you, but you decide basically. And once you've decided what your sessions are, you've also got to decide or identify perhaps what your maximum occupancy is going to be in those sessions. You can then make those sessions visible to your students so that they can see present and future slots, and they can see which ones are full and which ones still have availability. And what they could do is they could choose one of those available sessions and reserve themselves a visit. So they now know that they can start their journey off to the library knowing that they will actually be able to get in. And since we're pre-booking, obviously there is the risk that someone pre-booking may not turn up. So our system has to quickly and efficiently identify if a student fails to show up so that it can release that space for somebody else to use. So we're already looking hopefully at improving some of the first come, first served limitations, but we still are a little bit first come, first served. It's just no longer through the door of the library, and it's now through the website, through the booking website. So how do we actually make it a little bit fair and try to share the resource out a little bit more? Well, we apply booking limits to individuals. It might sound harsh, it might sound a little bit drastic, but if you're looking to share the resource out, then in fact applying limits per person is exactly what you need to do. So a student, for example, cannot book themselves 31 days in the library next month. It's more limited, and when we share it out that way. There are similar settings that you might want to apply as well to those booking rights. So, for example, a year free or final year student might have greater booking rights than a non-final year student. That's a possibility. Perhaps a student with learning difficulties might have different booking rights to others. Whole debates we could have, but the system needs to allow for that type of scenario. And potentially you could set up your actual sessions to be limited to certain groups of students as well. So your Monday morning is year 1, your Monday afternoon is a year 2, or your Tuesday is a year 2, or something like that. So you can potentially apply that type of rule as well. So just to give you an idea of what that might look like, this is our resource booking system. So typically the steps would be that you would identify who you are, you would identify the type of resource you want to book, i.e. a library visit, for example, and identify when. And it would take you through to a grid. In this example, our slots are pretty much the morning slot, the afternoon slot, and the evening slot here, and the morning is fully booked. So the 1 o'clock slot looks good, so a person might book that, confirm that, and that's the booking made. And just to close off, just a couple of additional considerations. It's all very well pre-booking, but then how do you know as people walk into the library that they have pre-booked? With our access control customers, what we're doing this summer is actually linking the 2 products together so that the turnstiles can check whether there's a booking, and the turnstiles can respond accordingly. Obviously, that's a little bit difficult for everyone looking in this morning. So the sort of thing we could do is deploy a fixed reader, perhaps on the wall or on the desk, which can read a card and give you a confirmation. Or of course, if you've got people standing at the entrance, as is very likely to help with safety and instructions, then those people could have a portable reader, and that portable reader could read the ID cards and check whether something's booked. And we also spoke a little bit earlier about stay duration and how we manage that, because a booking might have an end time, of course, and the person should leave. So maybe they scan their card on exit as well. And the system then has everything it needs. It has all the data it needs. It knows the booking detail. It knows when you should have left. It knows when you did leave. It can start to message and report, potentially even ban students from future use of the booking system if they are abusing it. So that takes us through library visit pre-booking. So happy to get any sort of comment whatsoever or any questions. Anybody like to comment on how applicable or unapplicable? Doesn't matter if it's negative, that's absolutely fine. It'd be useful to hear.
A couple of questions come through. The first one, what cards can the reader detect?
So on the last slide, what we would look to do, as we do with all our solutions, is marry your card technology with an appropriate reader. So the obvious ones are going to be barcode, obviously a barcode reader, but certainly MyFair and Desfar we encounter a lot. But whatever technology you've got on your card, we'll find a reader that will work with that.
And second question, how access services?
Oh, I'm sorry, Daisy, can you repeat that?
How would we access these services?
Oh, okay. So the booking screen, can I quickly come back to it? Yeah, this booking screen here is a web application. So it's typically as an application probably deployed on your premises, deployed on your infrastructure, but it's a web application, so you could certainly access that from PC or any browser. We also have a phone app, which I'm going to come on to in the next item, so you can do that from a phone app as well. Staff have a slightly different portal in as well, so staff are able to check bookings and to modify, cancel, and that type of thing. End of questions? Okay. Obviously, you all have our contact details, so if you think of questions afterwards, then please do get in touch on any of this. We'll be happy to hear from you. It might all be sort of sinking in at the moment. So I'll move on to the third item. which is Juno Study Time. So a phrase that might not mean too much to you just at the moment, but it's actually a product name. It's one of our products. It's part of the Juno Access Control family of products, and it existed actually prior to lockdown and prior to COVID as an item, which I shall explain. But its relevance to safer reopening is to actually shore up a little bit of a limitation or a little bit of a shortfall in the item we were just looking at, library visit pre-booking. The problem with library visit pre-booking is it's all very well deciding that you're going to restrict occupancy to a smaller number. But if everyone that's pre-booked then comes into the library and heads for the same corner of the library, then you haven't done so much to maintain social distancing. So Juno Study Time takes that a little bit further and requires you to actually book where it is in the library that you want to head, where you want to study. So you would book a desk or a pod or a defined space, basically, when you make your library visit booking. That obviously allows you to be much more confident, much more in control of social distancing. We've actually just taken an order for a university that is doing just this with all their desks. So they've got about 600 desks, and the only way that a student is going to get into the library in September is to use this product and book themselves a desk. But anyway, Study Time has a second arm, which is to make available some digital signage. So there's some software that allows you to create floor plans, and those floor plans are real time and display the availability of desks in colour form. So obviously red is unavailable and green is available. So in addition to Study Time helping with your social distancing, if students are allowed into the library to some extent without pre-booking, and they then want to find themselves an available desk when desks are in short supply, then rather than walking around the whole library, which in itself is obviously not an entirely safe thing to do, then they can use some digital information to find themselves an available desk and head straight there. So this slide really outlines the relevance of Juno Study Time to safer reopening. What I'd like to do in the next 2 or 3 slides is just give you a little bit more background to the Study Time product itself and how it works. So it's a mobile phone app at the heart of it, which is Android or iOS, and students will download it from the applicable store, and it will allow them to book themselves a resource, a study resource online. It does offer the facility for them to book at the desk as well. So if they find a desk that's free, then they can simply start using it, and the system allocates it to them so that now a student can come along and say that they've booked it. It advertises future availability, so students can look and book into the future, of course. And we've got those digital displays that I spoke about that allow students to also see desk availability. It encompasses the controls I spoke about in the last item, where we can apply limits to booking rights, which is going to help with making the sharing of your resource fairer and more widespread and more available across the whole student population. And there's just a couple of screenshots of the phone app to sort of finish up on, and what you would do in this example, for example, is you specify how long you want to study for. So we've selected 90 minutes in this case, and the app has found the resources that are free for at least that period of time. You decide you like the look of one of them and select it and decide to book it, and it takes you through to a booking confirmation screen. Tells you a little bit more about the item and allows you to book it. There are different ways in which you can find yourself a resource. Some of it will depend upon your preferences. You might have a particular day and be less fussed about the choice of desk. You might have a particular type of desk in mind and be less fussed about the day that you wish to study. So there are different ways you can try and find yourself a resource, but they all lead to a booking confirmation screen. And once you've booked, all you need to do then is turn up, and you use the phone app to scan a barcode on the desk. So the barcode is the only infrastructure you need. You may be aware of booking applications, or at least applications that monitor usage. And they might have a hardware infrastructure on the desk, but all we have is a barcode label. So the phone app scans the barcode label and starts your session. So just to wrap up again, just to reiterate the safer opening ideals, the concept of study time is to try to share that resource out more fairly. We help to show, we manage no-shows. The system identifies no-shows automatically and releases the desks for somebody else to book. And space hogging is managed by setting booking rights, of course. Got that digital signage, and all of that allows us to maximise the desk availability that we now have. And we also have all of this now as data. So we've got all our desks are now data, all our bookings are data. So we can point out our business intelligence tools at this, and we can make decisions on our resource, even more informed decisions, and get even better use out of the limited resource that we have. And just to suggest a couple of ways in which this could work. One option might be that you must pre-book space, and you don't get in the library unless you've pre-booked yourself a desk. But you could use study time in conjunction with an allowance for just visiting the library. So you might pre-book yourself a library visit. So for example, you could have a maximum occupancy of 400. You could have 300 desks on the booking system, and you could have an allowance of 100 for pre-booked library visits for people who just want to browse or graze, and you can obviously manage that how you like. Or alternatively, rather than having the pre-booked library visit, you could just allow a small number for ad hoc visitors just turning up on the day. So you use study time and perhaps another 100 people who are allowed simply to come in, or any combination of all three of these things. So that is Juno Study Time desk booking system. So again, happy to take any questions or thoughts from you. We did do a survey very recently. It's a survey available to you if you want. We did a survey of libraries, public and academic. Mostly got responses from academic libraries, I have to say. And we learned that 72% of academic libraries are considering pre-booking in one form or another. And it's this product that is attracting a great deal of interest amongst our existing customers. Any questions? No. Okay. So the next item is Juno Vantage, and I hand back to Barney.
Yeah, thanks Kevin. So yeah, Juno Vantage, our occupancy infographics. So what is this? It's or what's the purpose of it? The purpose is to provide occupancy information to your students and visitors. So it's possibly an extension to the two products that Kevin's just talked about, or it can also just be used as a standalone option to those. And essentially, it's to create displays such as what you can see there. And these can be displayed on your web page or on local digital signage. So let's move through. So the benefits of this is that you can improve the student experience and student satisfaction, particularly at the moment, as Kevin's mentioned, you don't potentially want students turning up and then being able to gain entry to the library. And this means that they'll be able to access library occupancy statistics from anywhere. They can log onto the website and take a look and see that there's how busy the library is at that particular time, and decide whether they head there to study. And this has the added benefit of helping you to manage occupancy and availability and maintain the social distancing that's required, because you'll now understand what your occupancy at any given moment is, and you can plan accordingly. And you'll be able to look back historically to see any trends or particularly busy periods, and make your decision making on, say, opening hours or staffing levels and that sort of thing from the data that you get. And you can also add this to areas or study areas that aren't necessarily in the library. So it might be that you have a learning commons, or you have some communal areas or sort of common areas within other faculty buildings, and you can advertise the occupancy of those spaces too. So where the library at the moment is looking to be on reduced occupancy levels, the survey that Kevin's just mentioned, we're seeing reductions to sort of 20–25% of normal total occupancy. So there's obviously a real need to maximise the use of study areas, not just in the library, but wherever they might be on the university estate. And this can help you do that. And this will then provide library management with information, additional information about building usage, as I say, periods of time where the building's particularly highly popular or highly used, and vice versa. So you can make decisions based on real evidence rather than potentially just a bit of a feeling or something anecdotal. So how can we do this? So we can utilise data from entry and exit barriers, turnstiles, from fixed mobile readers, and also from IR sensors. So I'll touch on these all three in just a moment. And we can then look at either total library or building occupancy. So if you have just, say, a bank of turnstiles on the way in to the building, you'll be able to understand what the total occupancy of that building is. Or we can also break that down further. So we can add further sensors internal to the building to other areas. And so you get a real granular idea of what the occupancy of those particular areas are. So it may be, for instance, that you have a sensor on the entrance to each floor. So you could then understand at each level of your library what the occupancy or availability of that area is. Or potentially have other areas such as postgrad or silent study, and you can have a sensor at the entrance to each of those areas, and that will give you data in the same way. And then you can make this available on your website, so students can navigate there and see the occupancy or the availability for the library or the other buildings or the other areas that you've chosen to monitor and display. And it's entirely up to you how you display this data. And you can also make this available on digital signage. So this, for instance, could be on the entrance to your library. You could have a screen set up showing that the different levels, and you could say, you know, level 3 is showing as quieter, so students can then think, right, I'll head straight to level 3 because I know I'm going to be able to get a seat, and they can form their decisions based on that. So this all utilises our Juno Access Control software and database, and that's essentially what makes this data available to you and available to your students via your displays. You can extend this further, so to display other custom occupancy information. So we can also add the study space information from the previous product that Kevin just talked about. And so you can show current availability and also future availability for those, because of course you've already got the pre-booked information, and potentially other booked rooms or booked resources. Entirely up to you what and how you want to display it. So with barriers and turnstiles, and some of your libraries may already have these, so we can integrate to them. Some of the benefits there are that they're highly accurate, and they provide a physical control to the access to your library, and this gives a sense of safety and security to your students they know that everyone who's scanned in is allowed to be in there, and just adds to their sense of well-being. And because everyone is having to scan in and out through the barriers, you can gain additional use of statistics from this, such as stage duration for particular students, and additional information like that. So the barriers are particularly suited for main entrances. They can be linked to your book security, so adding another layer of security there if somebody or an item, somebody attempts to exit the library with an item that's not been checked out correctly, it can stop them leaving. Some downsides potentially of barriers are that if you haven't got them already, they are sort of more expensive, and they're a bit more of an involved project to get off the ground. So not necessarily the sort of thing that can be sort of decided upon today and installed tomorrow. It potentially will need assistance from your estates, but there's an option there. And as I say, if you've already got them, then we can integrate to them. But we can also supply and install new barriers to suit your library. And then some other options. So fixed and mobile readers. So at the moment, where you're potentially going to have staff members at the entrance to your library, then you can have your staff using a mobile reader, and they can potentially scan the card of your student as they enter and exit, or you can have some fixed readers, as you can see on the right, doing exactly the same thing. So you get the data from those readers too. And this also gives you that granular information about stage duration, provided students do swipe in and swipe out. And then the next option is for IR sensors. So as you can see here, so these are mounted to the ceiling of the area that you're wanting to monitor, or the entrance that you're wanting to monitor. And we can easily add these to building entrances to provide total occupancy. They're very easy for us to retrofit to existing spaces. And we can all install into the additional zones within the library or other areas where potentially you don't want sort of full access control turnstiles, but you'd still like to know the occupancy information. And these have sort of, compared to turnstiles and some of the other options, are very low infrastructure costs. It's simply adding the sensor to the ceiling. And so the way that the sensor works is that we install it to the ceiling, and then we, through the software, configure count lines. There'll be 2 lines, so we know which direction somebody's traveling in, and we can really tune these to be highly accurate. And so when somebody walks through the count lines, if they're walking into the library, we know that they've gone in that direction, and we can increment the library occupancy figure to show that somebody's gone in. And then if somebody's exiting that area, then obviously vice versa, we can decrement accordingly. And then you can make all this data available on your infographics. So as I say, these are fully customizable and available for you to display exactly how you want to on local multiple digital displays or web pages. And then they're accessed via URL, whether that's via your website or whether you configure them for your digital displays. And they auto refresh and update in real time. So it's real time dynamic occupancy data. So at any given time, the student can take a look at this and see exactly what the occupancy of the building is, or the area. So just to summarize there, just a summary slide there really to share everything that I've just talked about, and all the options there for you. Very flexible how you can roll this out, entirely up to you, whether it's just a single sensor that's showing the total library occupancy, or if you wanted to extend it further, as we're seeing with quite a number of our customers, where they're adding it throughout the library to give them real granular data about the availability of all these individual spaces. So do we have any particular questions on this, or is this the sort of thing that you might be looking to understand the occupancy of your buildings more now?
We just have a question, well, not a question, but Debbie North has asked if we'll be sharing the slides of these products. Sound interesting. She'd like to share them with managers, which obviously we will.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll be sending out the slides from the presentation at the end So yeah, do please feel free to share with colleagues and to take a look. And if following the presentation, once you've had a look through the slides, if you do have any follow-up questions, you know, more than welcome to be in touch with us. No other questions? So, okay, so yeah, back over to Kevin for our next mini presentation.
Thank you, Barney. Okay, so the next item, my last item, is the touch-free self-service kiosk. So Telepen offer a full range, obviously, of RFID and self-service solutions, and that of course includes the kiosk, self-service kiosk. And for many years, what manufacturers have been doing, like us, is trying to cram as much functionality and features as we can onto that kiosk to make it more cost beneficial. That at the moment is the opposite of what we need to be doing, because the last thing we want is a touch screen that is touched by the fingers of multiple students every day. So the question at hand is, can we make our self-service kiosk touchless? Can we avoid the need to touch the screen? And the fact is, I don't know, I guess you heard that. I think that's just a test. The fact is that our old or our existing kiosk software at the start of the year was able to be touchless. There's a point at the beginning of transactions where the kiosk might ask, hi, what is it that you want to do today? And offers a whole range of options. And what you have to do with that is just nail that down to one function. So you have to do away with everything else. The usual function you choose is issue. If you want to return books, then put them in the box. If you want to check your account, then use your phone app. So if you want to issue items to yourself, then use the kiosk. So you no longer have to ask that initial question, and the kiosk is just there and ready and waiting for you to scan your card to start the transaction. There's then usually a process at the end of the transaction where the student identifies to the kiosk that they've finished. So there might be a finished button, or a print receipt button, or something like that, or some options along those lines. So what you are able to do, again, what we've been able to do for some time, is just to define a timeout, whereby if there is no activity, then the kiosk times out, prints a receipt if enabled to do so, and resets ready for the next user. It's not ideal. The timeout is necessarily long, because we have to allow for students who hesitate or get momentarily distracted. So we have a long timeout, and if a student is prompt on finishing, then the next person in the queue has to wait. I mean, they can't touch the screen, that's not allowed, so they can't touch the screen to tell it to move on. They just have to wait. So that's not ideal for the queue. The queue is not ideal for social distancing, and it's not ideal for getting students perhaps out of the building where you've got a busy building, and that's not the safest environment. So can that be improved on? So what we've done is we've developed some software that does improve on that. We developed it this summer. And what it does is it uses the RFID antenna to detect when the books are being removed from the worktop. So that's the point at which the student has finished and is on their way off. And that's the point at which you can immediately sort of reset the kiosk and be ready for the next person. So the process is simply scan your library card. So no touching of the screen. The reader, the barcode reader is shown here in the illustration, but it would be, like the question earlier, it would be a card reader appropriate for your cards. That would just simply be ready and waiting for the next person to walk up. So you scan your card, you place your books on the worktop, and those books are issued to you. The security flag is changed, obviously, and you then pick your books up off the worktop. A receipt is printed, and picking the book up, I should say, off the worktop is detected automatically. A receipt is printed if receipts are enabled, and the kiosk returns to being ready for the next card. It's as quick a process as is possible to achieve. And we have a video. It is, unsurprisingly, a short video. So here we go. Yeah, so that's it. No touching of the screen at all. This model actually is the sort of the entry level, the D1 kiosk, and the image that we saw on the screen earlier was our B5 kiosk. So we have a range of kiosks, but they are all available with this touchless operation. Oh, it wants to run again. I'm not gonna let it run again. So that's a touchless kiosk. Any questions? Nothing at the moment. Okay, so I will be around beyond the hour. We're not going anywhere, so if anyone wants to hang around and ask anything, they're welcome to do so. But I'm finished, thank you very much. And I'm going to hand back to Barney for the final item.
Thanks, Kevin. So, as mentioned earlier, actually, a question earlier that arose about a mobile app for students, and that's exactly what this is. It's our Patron mobile checkout smartphone app. So it's a smartphone app aimed exactly at students or users of your library. It can be fully customized and branded so it looks like a university app. Or there's an API available if you needed to or wanted to incorporate it into your existing university app. And it enables students to check out items using their smartphone. It works on any smartphone. We use the camera of the smartphone to read the item barcode. We have deliberately avoided using the NFC functionality of some phones because we wanted to make this available to all students, or as many students as possible. And NFC is currently limited only to those with the newest smartphones. And also there's various limitations with Apple iPhones. Some NFC phones work better than others or handle NFC differently. So the safest thing and the decision that we've made is to make this available to all students so they use their camera. And then we do some clever stuff in the background that means that the RFID security is still maintained. And therefore, when somebody checks an item out, they aren't going to alarm the gates as they leave. And the idea of this really is that it will help increase circulation of items. Students can check the items out wherever they are at the shelf. So they pick an item off the shelf and they can straight away check it out there without needing to go and use a self-service kiosk or a member of staff check it out for them. And that also helps with reducing contact for, as Kevin's just said, with using self-service terminals and staff using their terminals to check the items out. So it's just another option. It can work alongside those other options. So you can obviously still retain your staff circulation and your self-service kiosks, and this can just be another option to work alongside those. And we hope this will improve customer service and customer feedback everywhere that so far that has this. Students really like being able to do it themselves, and we're confident that you'll find this too. So another video here which will show you the features. So I'll just set this going and describe as we go along. So you can see here, so we find the app in our phone, tap to open it, and then the first time we open, we'll need to log in using our library credentials. So that'll be a library card number, or we can actually scan our library card to enter. And then we log in, and we're into the app, and we've got a few options there. The main one being is borrow an item. So that will then take over the phone control, scan the barcode, and then the item's checked out. You see the tick there. And then you've got another option at the bottom where you can borrow more. Or you can simply then, at that point, take your items and walk out of the library without the gates alarming. Some other options within the app are you can use it to renew your items. And so at the bottom of the screen, you'll see that there's an option once you've logged in to view your account, and to any items that are on your account. If you're able to renew them, you can do so. This also follows the rules of your library management system. So any rules that you have set in there, whether items are allowed to be renewed or not, this app won't override that. As simple as that. The item is renewed, so students can do this at home. And as mentioned here, so you can also check your reserved items here. So students can log in and have a look and see whether it's available or waiting for collection. So a very simple app for students to use, and all the feedback we have is that they really like using it. So as you can see there, just some screens, and as I mentioned, and this can all be branded to match or customized to match your branding, or it is available as an API for you to include in yours, in your own university app. So there we go. Any questions on the Patreon mobile checkout?
Yeah, we've got a couple. How does the app automatically manage RFID?
So to manage the RFID, we create a whitelist of the item. So when an item is checked out using the barcode, our software holds a whitelist of that, and then we integrate with security gates, whether that's our own security gates or there are a number of models of other vendors' security gates that we can integrate with. So as the item is passed through or walks through the security gates checks against our whitelist, and if the item's on there, it won't alarm. If it isn't on there, obviously it will alarm as you would hope. And then when the item is returned, it's removed from that whitelist, and the RFID security remains secure. As I mentioned, it does work alongside other, so self-service and normal circulation.
And how do you validate that the user number entered into the app is who they claim to be?
So there's a few different options for login, and some of this is down to trust, that the students are going to log in themselves using their own credentials, in the same way that you wouldn't like your students to pass their card to another student to check out using the self-service kiosks. So we can log in using Active Directory and that sort of thing, or a PIN, and it's expected that students wouldn't pass that sort of information over to their friends. Obviously, there are some limitations as to how we can check that, but really it's down to students to keep control of their own personal data and personal identification for those purposes. Any other questions there at the moment? No? Okay, well, this brings us to the end of the product. So it's just one other thing to mention. So at the moment, we do have some particular offers for some of the products that we've talked about here. So some of these items are available to you free of charge to help you get back up and running for a period of time. We will, as I say, send out the copy of the slides, but just to make you aware that these items are available to you free of charge for a period of time if you did want to either trial them, or if you think that might be useful for a certain period of time to get you back open. There's no obligation for you to continue using them, but it's, we're just looking to do what we can to try and get you back open and your libraries open safely. And so all that remains is for me to say thank you very much for joining us this morning. Hopefully that you found the content interesting and of use. We are available for any follow-up questions, or if you like any additional information. You can contact us at the email address shown on the screen there, or the phone number. We'd be pleased to advise or to talk further. Thank you very much.